What's up, guys? Welcome back. We have a super exciting video on our hands. I'm building the fuel system for the port injection side in this video. I haven't seen any videos being done on this. It's a complete DIY setup. Saves a few $100. I'm gonna put up the cost somewhere in this video of how much it cost me versus what you can buy for like a plug and play kit from like Precision Raceworks or something like that. They sell those AFS kits, which is pretty much what this is. Just more DIY. So you have to kind of piece it all together. It's a little bit more of a pain in the ass, but it's more rewarding because you save a little bit of money and you can kind of customize some things. So this is everything I have laid out to build this said fuel system. Just to kind of give a quick overview, port injection rail. These are some 8 ORB fittings to -6AN. We will be doing PTFE 6AN lines. This is the top hat from Precision Raceworks. There's a few other companies that sell this as well. Spool's actually getting ready to drop theirs. That one should be a little bit cheaper than this one if I'm not mistaken. You need a fuel regulator, some wiring stuff, bunch of -6AN fittings. I'm not sure which ones I'm going to need, so I probably won't use all of these to be honest, but wanted to have more just in case. You'll need your fuel pump. This is a Walbro 525. Originally I was going to go with a 535. But this is the same pump, but it has an internal check valve in it. And the internal check valve is really important. It does make a difference. There's been reports of people overheating their relays and stuff like that just because it's constantly trying to work and regulate that pressure. But then you will need a relay. You'll need a fuel pressure sensor, some Deutsch connectors. You'll need a fuel pump bracket for in-tank. This is a Spool Performance one. You'll have to build your own wiring harness. I'll go over that in a second. These are the harnesses provided by Precision Raceworks when you buy their fuel hat kit. You'll need some injectors. These are ID 1050s, and these came with a manifold to space it out for that height of the fuel rail. You'll need a fuel filter. This is a Racetronics one. It has a removable 10 micron filter in it. You'll need some bulkhead fittings for this piece. These are -6AN on one side and I believe 8mm on the other side. Some 6 ORB to 6AN and a 6 ORB block off. This is all for the regulator. I'm gonna do a switch in line. So that switch is gonna allow me to manually turn on that Walbro 525 fuel pump and it'll give it 100% capacity. So I'll have a return line fuel system. So it'll come in here along the fuel rail and then it'll loop back. But if I ever decided to, instead of it going around here and into the regulator, I could take that hose, put it into a bucket or something, and drain out everything that's in the tank. So let's say I'm running 91 and I want to switch over to E85 and I want a full tank of that. I can just disconnect the line from the regulator, the return line, and put it in a bucket, drain all the fuel out, and then fill up the tank with E85, which is a pretty cool feature if you're driving to the track or something like that. You're driving there, only have 91. You want to get the most out of your car once you get to the track and you want to put full E85 in it, you can do that. I actually got that idea from Keegan's car in Utah. When we were down in Texas, we were switching over to E85 on his car and we drained out all the 91, which is pretty cool. So you don't have to worry about that residual whatever 10-15% that's affecting your ethanol content. Also, I did want to mention this is going to be a longer video. I'm going to be doing an in-depth walkthrough on everything. I want this to be a very comprehensive video. I don't want to miss anything. I will have links to all the stuff that I can in here. Obviously there's some stuff like a custom wiring harness that I can't do, but I'm going to drop the video right now of Jensen and I building this custom fuel harness and all the pieces that you'll need to do that yourself.
All right, well, we're making Ethan's fuel pump harness, which is not that scary. I think a lot of people are intimidated by it. It's really not that bad. And you can make it clean and do it the right way. So we have our relay block for your solid state relay. And the biggest thing is just making sure that your relay is wired correctly. But realistically, we're going for power and ground, and then a trigger signal from Reflex, which is a low level trigger. So it's a ground signal. So if you're running your fuel pump on PWM with Reflex, Reflex is gonna pulse a ground signal to your relay to turn on your fuel pump. So at idle, you can run it at lower duty cycles. So we'll throw this harness together, and then I gave Ethan a diagram of how this goes too. And Ethan will probably link everything we used for this.
I'll put the diagram on the screen right now.
Yeah, but really the only special tools that you're gonna need is like a set of terminal crimps. You can get your plugs on Amazon.
What kind of plugs are those?
We're just using 2-pin Deutsch connectors, if that's how you pronounce it.
It is.
But that's pretty much all you're going to need. So one of these is going to go to your Reflex, and you're going to take one wire from your aux2 on Reflex. It's the gray wire. That's going to go to the trigger on the relay. And then we're going to use another one of these plugs for our connection to the fuel pump underneath the car. So I'll send you home with a female version of one of these plugs that you're going to have to crimp onto your Precision Raceworks harness that comes with your fuel hat. But other than that, that's pretty much it. It's really simple. So we'll go through the whole thing. It's not going to be hard.
You're using 12 gauge.
Yeah. Which is a little overkill for this setup.
12 gauge on mine?
Nope.
I think
It's 14.
Is that why my wires overheat?
Yours don't overheat. Mine do, because my fuel pump doesn't have a goddamn check valve. All right, so this is ground, which is going to be in pin 85. Done. Oh my god. All right, these terminals are like pretty undersized, but it's going to work. It's going to be fine. All right, this is power to our relay, which is going to pass through right here. And then we're going to put a terminal on the other end of this. Terminal. So this is going to the positive on your battery. And I'm going to solder these two just because I like to be extra. This is not necessary, it's overkill. But I'm also never going to get a phone call from Ethan saying, hey, my terminal came off and my car blew up. Okay, this is going to go to your other terminal. There's a ground on like the left side of the battery in like the trunk area that you can get to and just ground this to that. You don't need to ground directly to the battery. This ground is actually super overkill because this is just ground for the relay. We're going to ground the fuel pump separately.
Speak.
All right, now we're going to tie in your trigger from Reflex. Speak, it says.
Speak.
This is smaller, doesn't need to be big. We're not going to carry any current through this.
This is trigger wire.
Yep. And I even got you gray wire to match
match the gray.
trigger on Reflex.
Hopefully I did white and not gray on the other one. For the Max solenoid. I think I did white. If not, then I'm switching them.
Okay. And this is going to be pin 86, which is this one right here. Okay. Boom. And then I'm going to send you with loom for this as well, so you can make it look nice. But for now, it's just going to be like flying lead. You'll have to put. Actually, you know what? I can put your connector on this end. So, but I don't know how long it needs to be. So you'll do that. For sure. We'll just zip tie this away for now. Okay. This is our last terminal on our relay. Who's calling me? Okay, so now it's easier to explain. So this is your battery connection, an inline fuse, and then your ground.
What fuse goes inside of there?
A 30 amp for like a 525. 30 amps is enough. And then this is your trigger to Reflex, right? So Reflex is sending a ground signal, and your relay is just a switch. And every time that Reflex grounds this wire, that switch is closing the connection from the battery terminal through this wire to the fuel pump. So it's just an on-off switch. Yeah, that runs really quickly on and PWM with a lot of current. So that's all that this is. It's not very intimidating if you just understand what's going on here. So that's a simple way to put it. But yeah, there you go. Because this connection is going to go to the fuel pump, and then we're going to add another ground wire for the fuel pump that's separate from the relay block. All right.
This is grounding the fuel.
This is grounding the fuel pump. Yep.
Okay.
So
we're cutting the wire the same exact length as this long red wire.
Yep. And this isn't going to go into the relay. This is basically going to be one wire grounded on the car that goes to the fuel pump. So you can make this short. You could ground it like near the fuel pump, but to keep it simple, we'll ground it all together. So we're going to add a terminal on this end, and then we'll loom all this, and then we're going to put a 2-pin connector on the end of that Well, I'm gonna send you the 2-pin connector because it's gonna be long, so that you can adjust. I wish I had a car here so we could just like make all of it, but it is what it is.
All right, we are in the back seat here. Back of the car. I already don't have any back seats in here, so I couldn't really show you guys removing those, but you just pull up. It's a bunch of these little tabs right there. Just pull right up out of the seat. There's no bolts or anything. And then you peel back this carpet, which will reveal this. And then you'll just twist this top hat cover, pull that out of the way. Get that wire out of the way too. Connect that one. It's like a red clip. I believe you have to pull up on that first. Yep. So that was pushed down. You just have to separate that and then push down this tab right there. That's what I was doing. Move this out of the way now. And it's kind of dirty in here. I'm going to vacuum up all that stuff so I don't drop any dirt into the fuel tank. And then we'll pull this connection off. And I got it all cleaned up now. So we can move on to removing this locking ring, and then we'll pull the pump out. First we need to disconnect this though. And then in order to get this connector, you got to push down on it. There's like a, it's kind of springy. Push down on it, press in the red connector, press in the white connector, and you can pull up, just like that. There'll be some fuel that comes out of there. I'm gonna put a towel on this. I'll move it off to the side here, and then kind of clean up all this junk that came out of there. And then from there, we need to get this this locking ring off. So what I'm going to be doing is putting a screwdriver in like that, and kind of hitting it with a mallet. Let's move over the locking ring. And then that ring will come off out of there. Set it off to the side, and then you should be able to see your pump inside there. There's a lock at the bottom of it. I'll show you how to get that in a second. Let me just reposition here. Had to get a fan going in here. The fumes got to be a lot. But kind of set this off to the side. We have to disconnect that blue and black tab really quickly. It's one of the Venturi lines. Some cars might have two of them. This one only has one. So got to press in both sides of that, pull that line off, and then the bucket's locked at the bottom there. I have to figure out how to unlock that and then pull this pump out. Okay, so that line's off now. Look at this little latch right here. There's a little tab. You're gonna want to pull up on that. Release from the lock. There we go. The whole thing just released. There's that little yellow lock down there. So now the whole thing's free. I have way too much fuel in here. I should have done it on a closer to empty tank. But you live and you learn. Careful on not damage the float down there. But also I have a bucket full of gas, so I'm trying to dump some of this out without damaging anything. So disconnect this green and black wire. The green and black wire right there, disconnect that, and we'll be able to pull this pump out. And just to clarify here, I'm disconnecting the ones that are stuck, that are like preventing the bucket from coming out. That wouldn't have been good. So I'll transfer this into a box so I don't splash any fuel on my way out. All right, let's take it over to the bench. And by bench, I mean floor, because my garage is filthy right now. Let's prep a couple things though. Let's get this fuel hat ready, because I can't think with all the fumes in my garage right now. Excuse the fan in the background, but so pop these off. This one. They're just blocked off when you get the kit. It does not come with these bulkheads, so you'll need to get some. So you can set those off to the side. The bulkheads we got, again, are it's like barbed to 6AN and it has O-rings on both sides, those little white things. So, let's see here. And of course, they're fucking assholes and it doesn't slide right in. Lovely. Nope, I think I'm gonna have to drill that hole out a little bit. That's really annoying. So yeah, I'll drill that out enough to pass this through there. So we'll set like this and then sandwich with the locking nut on the bottom side. All right, and back to it. I just took a little circular file and just took the smallest amount off. So didn't really take much, but now this slides in here, the AN side on this side, obviously, so we can screw into that later. Oh, don't forget your O-ring. Now it slides in there. So it goes like that, and then put the O-ring on this side, and then the locking ring. I'm using an AN wrench to protect these because these are aluminum. Don't want to mar them up. Cool. That's tight on there. So then you can add this bracket as well as the screw that's provided, this little baggie. This will go on top of here, so we can transfer over this module from the other fuel hat. It'll go right there. So for this, pull on this tab right here, and then lift up, that module will come out. And I'll just slide right in here, just like that. Cool. I think everything's prepped on here as far as this piece goes. So we'll set that off to the side for now and start working on the actual pump. Okay, first of all, let's free up all these wires, get rid of all the zip ties. We need to cut off this line here. She's a razor. Cut that off, and then we're good to remove this plug. So then once you have this, and more fuel came out somehow. So then this part's separated from this part. You can kind of set that off to the side. You don't need that at all anymore. So then now you're gonna take the provided white hose and point this towards the sky. Slide it on there. Don't forget your little hose clamp. Put it on there. I guess we can prep the fuel pump. So you're provided two identical looking connectors, but they're not. One has a red tab in it, right there. This one goes on the outside. This one goes on the inside. And the fuel pump, depending on which one you get, will have a black and red wire. You're just gonna make sure that these line up. I'm gonna cut the connector off this and use some marine solder connectors. These are super nice. Basically, you stick a wire on both sides of this, and then you use a heat gun. It heat shrinks it, so it waterproofs it, as well as it melts this solder that's in the middle there, making it a perfect connection. So that's what I'm going to use to mate those together. So I'll be back in a second once that's done. Alrighty, so a little update here. I ended up bending the bracket. This is the spool provided bracket. I just bent this tab in, so now it'll sit. Kind of tough to get on there, but that's kind of the point. I don't want it to slip off. That's kind of how I have it sitting. So when I take this off, I might actually lower it a little bit. Doesn't quite fit on there, right? Lock that down. So yeah, that bracket sits on there now. We need to run the line from this, like this, and then put the other end into your aux port. This is the 8mm on this end to 10mm on this end. This is one of the Racetronics hoses. So yeah, gonna put the 8mm side on this one, and then the 10mm side on this one, and use these worm clamps again to secure it on there. And then now that that's connected, take this out, connect that. I guess we can wait to connect that until it's in the car, but that'll go like that. I guess we could also add our wiring right now. This is the provided wiring harness from Precision Raceworks. Precision Raceworks would not sell me the bracket to mount the pump to the side of the tank, which I thought was kind of weird. Just make it all nice and neat all together. Not really looking forward to building these lines, but that is part of it. I guess I could connect these right now. And then for these ones, you have a white and black and a green and black. You can't put it in the wrong one. I just tried that because I thought it was the other way around, but it won't fit in there. There's this thing to line up here. You can't put it in that way, but you can put it in that way. So that means that the other one is the green and black. Here's kind of what we're working with. We got to put this back in first, and then secure the pump with the lock over here. And then from there, we'll throw this in and attach it onto here. Right there, we'll attach this on there, and then we'll connect this line. We'll connect that in hose. We'll connect that one inside the bucket for this line, and then we'll connect this to the main, and then this connector to the aux one right there. So that's kind of the order of operations that we're going to do that in, and then we can start on the lines. Alrighty. Let's give it our first shot, shall we? Okay, I just locked it in. Cool. I think that was supposed to be the hardest fucking part. Famous last words. Okay, now I have to clip this other pump onto the side. This pump has to go in there. Clip onto the side of the bucket. Can't see shit in there. Okay, I might have to rethink the position of this pump. Oh shit, did I even tighten that? Good call, Fox. Good call. Alrighty, change of plans. I'm gonna put the pump on the fuel bucket right here. It's mounted on there pretty good right now. Just have to kind of tuck all the cables now. Don't forget this black and red is gonna go to the aux side. I think it's this side is the aux side. And then the the other bracket, wherever that went. Where did the other one go? It's down here. This is going to go into the main side, which is right here. Don't forget to connect white hose to your main pump, and then don't forget to connect this fuel level sensor from, I believe this is a fuel level sensor off of the driver's side. That'll go to this open connector, and then you just have to get everything seated in here. Probably gonna do that off camera just because it's gonna be a pain, but make sure everything's connected. Don't forget to reconnect your Venturi line down here. Make sure everything seats and isn't smashing anything necessarily, and you should be fine. All right, and fuel hat's in, the locking ring's back on. You can put this line back on. Okay, there's a second click. It's not all the way on there the first time. And then you'll take the provided harness here, and you're gonna be connecting to the main one. It says main right there. And lock that down. And this will connect to the factory big harness. And this will go to the smaller one. So I'm gonna connect those really quick. Oh, and then this one is the harness that we made. So it comes with everything but the Deutsch connector. I added that on there. So I'm gonna slice a little hole in the boot here and feed this end through, because this will need to connect to the harness that we're about to put in the trunk right there. Alrighty, and now for the harness part of this. And we've already kind of gone over all the components of this. This is gonna connect to the positive right here. This is where our relay is going to go. This connects to that fuel pump connector I was just talking about, that Deutsch connector. What else? This is the reflex trigger wire. I have to run this all the way up to the engine bay. And then this is grounded here. So there's a factory ground there. Oh, focus. There's factory ground right there that I'm going to use for these. But this whole harness is going to get tucked in here. And then for the not so fun part, I have to drop the exhaust and then get to the undershield, which I'll show in a second. But first, you got to drop that exhaust. All right, we are underneath the car. We have to drop this exhaust, like I said before. Don't forget about this brace. It's a bunch of 13 millimeters. All the exhaust is held up by 13 millimeters, and then this brace is also 13s. I'm not going to show this process, because if you've gotten this far and you can install a standalone fuel system, you can figure out how to drop an exhaust. It's not too bad. Drop it from the hanger point, so don't take it out of here, but just take out the bolts like that. So that one, and then more further down there. But and then after that's done, we'll take out this metal sheet. It's covering up the drive shaft. And we'll be running the fuel lines from the tank up to the fuel filter, which I have mounted right there. Got the exhaust dropped down, sitting back there now. Need to drop this heat shield. It's just these 10 millimeters, go all the way around. And that's just so we can route the lines underneath. You don't want the fuel lines hanging down in case it gets caught on something. You kind of want those tucked up in a way underneath the shields. So drop this, and then I'll show you the routing that we're going to be doing for your PTFE AN lines. And for the fuel filter, this is a bracket I bought. This tab is in the way though. This one on the right here. So I'm going to be using this one, but I'm going to cut this one off really quick. Got the shielding out of the way. It's a little drive shaft action. All right, so now you can kind of see where the factory line goes. Goes right on top of there. I don't know if we're gonna have to drop the tank or not. I'm gonna try to get an AN line through there and see if it'll work. And then you'll just follow the factory routing and go up through there, and then run it up to my fuel filter on this side. So I'm gonna run it around here into the fuel filter.
Because past the fuel filter up there is where the motor is, so just be easier to run it for me along there. But you kind of have freedom to choose at this point how you want to run your AN lines, where you want to run your AN lines. But for our system, we do have to run 2 up to the tank here. So one's the feed line going to the port rail, and the other one is the return line. So you have to run both. I'm gonna see if I can get the AN line up there and kind of go from there, I guess. And I already kind of went over how to build your own AN lines in a different video. I'll recap really briefly, just show you guys one, and then pretty much from there I'll just show you what connections I'm making at what length, and then hopefully you guys will be able to not have to go through all this R&D process of figuring out the links that you need. I can just kind of provide those for you. But this is way too long, obviously. I think this, I can't remember if I ordered 25 or 30 feet, but I'm gonna cut it in half since we are working with 2 lines here. And then we'll start making the first line. I'm just gonna do 2 90s for now. I'm gonna do 1 on each of the lines, and then we'll run them up to the tank and kind of get a gauge for how long they need to be going from there. Alrighty. After you cut your line, this is the spreader tool. Kind of keeps it round. Make sure it's round, nice and neat. And then take your fitting. These are PTFE lines, so they will have the olive in there. If you're gonna be doing fuel lines, you should be doing PTFE lines. Set this off to the side for right now. Slide the collar onto the hose. Take this tape off. See, it's already fraying. And then what I like to do is grab a small flathead, kind of separate the metal fibers from that inner plastic tube. Kind of get some space in between there. Then you'll be inserting your olive with a tapered end this way. And you're looking for it to meet up to the edge right here. Right there. Right there. Make sure that it's flush all the way around. And if you want, you can even run your tool in here. Just make sure everything's good and neat. And then you'll run this end up and screw this in. So that. And here's where you need this aluminum block here. Just to hold the line without marring it up. Then you'll take your adjustable AN wrench and tighten this the rest of the way down. All right, we're underneath the car again, drive shaft. There's a bolt, 13 millimeter right here. And then I believe it's just these straps holding it on after that. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's just this strap, that strap, and then that bolt. So we're about to find out, but yeah, need to get this line on top of there. So we'll follow that curve up there. So yeah, so I'm gonna try and drop this fuel tank and not delete myself in the process. So wish me luck. All right, and got the fuel tank dropped just that little bit. Gotta route the lines over the drive shaft and up into that cavity right there. You gotta follow the factory line. Just gotta shove those up there, and then we'll route it, make sure that we have enough length for everything, and then kind of get some idea of where we need to cut it. Back in the back seat where it smells like fuel. Here's one line. Where did the other one go? This is our aux line. I marked it blue. Where's the other one at? here's our other line. So just kind of put them in place, and then we'll route underneath the car where these need to go permanently.
Alrighty, this is the first line I made. I have a 90 on one end and a 45 on the other. And then I bought, I cannot remember, I think it's 1/4 inch thread to 6-6AN. If that's wrong, I'll put the correct one on the screen. But I have one of these pneumatic fittings for my air hose, and gonna thread that into there. And then I have a 6AN block off, and I'm gonna put one end of that, one end of that. Pressure test it, make sure that there's no leaks. I'm gonna put it in a bucket of water, to make sure that there's no air bubbles coming out of there. This is a fuel line. You cannot have leaks. If there's a leak, you need to address it now. You have to take your time with these. It is your life that we're talking about. So, not to get morbid, but make sure that these are tight, make sure that they're not leaking. These are $5 in fittings right there. So, spend the extra couple bucks to get the correct stuff and pressure test it to make sure that everything is good. I'm gonna pressure test these at 100 PSI, just to give myself some headroom. These lines will probably only ever see 90 PSI or so, but for future proofing, in case I decide to push 50 PSI on the car, boost level, it'll be good for it. Okay, so there's definitely a leak from this one right here. I gotta tighten that one down more. And it's no longer leaking. Custom AN lines are completed. I'm gonna draw out a diagram here of the measurements as well as the routing that I have it right now. But I'll kind of explain it as well. I have 2 lines coming from the tank running next to the factory fuel lines. One goes into the fuel filter and then goes up to the port rail. 90's off there, goes through the port rail, has a 180-degree bend all the way back around the manifold again, back into the fuel regulator, out of the return to the fuel regulator, all the way back to the tank. Overall, not terrible, but also not fun. Takes a lot of time to make these lines and then pressure test them, everything like that. Getting underneath the car and back out, a whole bunch of times to measure and cut and whatever, but it's finally done. Got all the lines, gonna run them really quickly, secure them down, and I'll show you guys the routing once it's actually in the car. And then from there, we need to throw the injectors into the rail, wire up the motive reflex, and start buttoning things back up, because I'm pretty sure that that's the end of it. Alrighty, and got the lines coming over the drive shaft. It's zip tied to the factory fuel line up there. Comes along here, paired up. Taking advantage of some of the studs that are sticking out to mount the lines. Keep them side by side here. This was another factory stud that had a factory nut on it, so I just utilized it since there was nothing on there. Tied them together, stay together, and then let me turn on my flash. And they stay paired up until the fuel filter, where this line is going to go straight up to go into the fuel rail, and then this line, the return line, is going up through here, and it'll mount underneath the regulator. But this is that port injection line going up there, and then it'll go straight that way for the return line. Might have a little bit of slack in that one, but should be fine. Now let me show you up top. So this is that return line. It's got to come all the way underneath all this stuff. All this stuff under here. It's got to mount to the bottom of this, where there's a AN line right there. And then this port rail line, obviously when the port rail's here, it'll go to the back of that, and then I'll have the 180 fitting coming back around to here, and then feeding into this right here. And on the regulator, it's a -6 ORB to -6 AN. And then for our vacuum reference, it'll be this to this. So really not a whole lot left. I'm gonna get these routed, and I'll show you guys putting the injectors into the rail really quick so I can get this rail on there, connect those lines, and then make the final 180 line. And then I think it's on to wiring after that. Alrighty, you got your fuel rail here. Have to prep your injectors first though. I've already done a few examples of what it's going to look like, but pretty much you get the bare injector. Let's grab one out of here. So this is how your injectors will come. These are ID 1050 cc injectors. So the blue is the top, brown is the bottom. Won't actually need to worry about the bottoms right now. Your manifold kit will come with these extenders, these clips, and these green O-rings. I think you guys can kind of see where this is going. This goes on top of there. This clips it in. And then this O-ring replaces that. It basically just extends the injector for the taller fuel rail. And in here, I just have a little bit of silicone lubricant. Just don't want to damage the O-rings. Goes on there. And then these clips. Make sure it's fully seated on there, and that's not going to come off. Then you can add that O-ring up top. That's 3 prepped. Get the rest of them all done, and then we'll install them into the manifold, put it in the car. And there is a correct orientation on this. So if you're looking at the side that has these indents, the side doesn't have it. See, it's kind of indented right there. That's going to go towards the driver's side of the car. So it'll really sit in here like this. So I got to add our ORB to AN fittings really quick. And then you just need to install all 6 injectors. Go through and remove all of your injector port plugs if you haven't already. Then go ahead and take all of your caps off and make sure that all of the bottom O-rings are lubed and that they're going to slide in there freely. And then place the injector rail. Make sure that all of the injectors make it in their homes. Okay, we're gonna face all the connections to the left now. I think all of them are pressed down. Cool. Now in your kit, you'll have these gold screws with the silver nuts on them. Stick the golden screw through and then put the nut on the other side of it, and that's what'll hold the fuel rail down. And we'll get all those injectors plugged in here in a second. Excuse the fan, I got really hot in here again. Here's a nice little tip. So those are 8mm nuts and bolts. If you put a piece of tape on the back side of it and then put the nut in here, it makes it a lot easier to fish it down into that place, and then you can just take the tape off and finish screwing it the rest of the way in. Just have to hold on one end, and then you can plug in all of your injectors from your motive harness. And then now's a good time to connect your feed line to the back. Now we have the line connected in the back, feeding the port rail, and then return the fuel back to the tank. It'll be doing the 180, going back behind here. And then I have it taped right there where I think it's gonna have to go to the fitting. This is gonna be connecting to this regulator here on this back side. This is a regular setup that we have. This is the Motive 0 to 10 bar pressure sensor. We monitor our fuel pressure, and then there's this 1-to-1 boost reference line. But this mounted in here, that blue tape is exactly where we want it to be. So I know I'm good to make that straight connection right there. I do have one side blocked off. There's a cap right there, 6 ORB to 6 AN, 6 ORB to 6 AN, and then that boost reference line. Yeah, you're free to mount this wherever you'd like, the regulator that is. You can mount it underneath the car if you wanted, but just know we'll have to boost reference to the manifold there. And then I just have this handy dandy mount that's gonna connect right there. This will go underneath there, the wires will go back. But this return line that's already 90'd, that's gonna go on the bottom. That's a return. And then the feed on the right side is that line that we're about to make right there. Again, it's all part of that diagram that I showed earlier in the video. Big update here, got this auxiliary trigger wire ran. This was from the harness that was built at Black Market Race.
So it's this gray wire. It comes out of the back of the fuel tank, and just runs along this factory wiring. I just have it zip tied up. Runs all the way up and goes into, one sec. Just follows the factory routing, goes into the wheel liner. And then I had to change it to a black wire. I ran out of gray. So I cut a few feet off the gray and just used black wire. Have it coming up behind there. Mates with the wiring that's already there. Goes up, around. I had some extra, so I bundled it up. But then goes up. Wire comes through here and goes into here, where I have a connector on the end of it that's running to the gray aux 2. You can't even really see it. This is gonna be the secondary one for the pump, so it's ran on the gray one. Aux 1 is gonna be the white one. That's the white one right there. I have my max solenoid routed to that. You can reverse it if you want. You just have to let your tuner know which one. The gray aux wire and this other red wire. And this red wire is going to this switch here. And then the other side of the switch is this black. And the black runs out here and grounds right there. But now I have a manual switch that I can turn off and on the fuel pump. So got the car put back together, getting ready for the first start. Just testing out the manual fuel pump switch. I don't know if you guys can hear that turn on or not. So that's working. So I'm gonna turn the car on and I'll flip that switch and it'll be circulating through the fuel pump. And it'll be pushing fuel from the fuel pump up to the fuel rail, the return line back to the regulator. And then I have to set the regulator pressure using the 1/8 inch Allen key there. So you'll just twist this pretty much and set the fuel pressure and then run down the locking nut. But yeah, I need to set the fuel pressure, and then I'll be able to go for the first drive and start logging this puppy. And that's gonna do it for this video. I'm gonna end it there. I'll be coming out with a whole video on the tuning process of this car with the new tuner, which I've kind of been hinting at if you have me on Instagram, or I might have said it in another video, I'm not sure. But I've switched over to a Racebox for tuning. Alex over at Racebox will be tuning this car. He's a very phenomenal tuner, very knowledgeable dude. And I just wanted to put this in here. I've already spoken with David Shoot, my old tuner, and he knows that there's no hard feelings. It's nothing that he did. From a content standpoint, moving forward, for me personally, Racebox makes the most amount of sense. I still think that he's a phenomenal direct injection tuner, but for this port injection setup, I wanted to switch it up. That's why I'm gladly repping Racebox now. They're gonna get this car right. We're about to start the tuning process right now, as soon as it stops raining outside. Still a few things to button up. Need to throw the turbo blanket back on. Need to throw all this cowling back on. But if you guys made it this far, I appreciate you guys watching. This was definitely my longest video to date, but check out the next video for the tuning process of this car. In that video, I'm gonna set the regulator pressure, connect that 1-to-1 boost line right there. But it's been a journey so far. Finally, everything is working. No leaks so far that I can tell, which is awesome. I've linked in the description a list of all the parts I bought for this fuel system. A lot of them you might already have. I already had some of these laying around, so I just listed them anyways. But realistically, if you have some tools and some basic wiring stuff, this can be done for about $1,000 versus the $1,500 that Precision Raceworks charges for the base kit. And then if you were to ever upgrade past the base kit and you wanted to go to the dual pump setup, the only thing you need to change was get a different fuel bracket that can support 2 fuel pumps, and then get a Y fitting, which I'll put a picture of here. Alrighty, I'll stop yapping now. Gotta go edit this video. It's gonna be a long one, so hopefully I get it up on time. I'll see you guys next week. I'll probably drop the St. George, Utah vlog next week. Just have some clips I wanna compile with that if I have enough footage for it. Otherwise, it'll be the tuning video or the starting tuning video for this car. So I'll see you guys next week. Appreciate you guys watching. Later.